Okay, cool.
Morning, Ali.
Morning. Change of scenery today?
Yes, on the
Well,
couch.
Yeah, now it's going to be easier to see the guys walking past.
That's fine. We'll recognize them easier.
Yeah, see who's walking past too often. So today we're going to just have a little chat, a discussion, open the conversation about a 4-day work week. It was a suggestion on the clarity survey we did about Let's Be Frank to our company, and someone said it was something they would like to hear us chat about.
Yeah, so it's been in the news recently.
Yeah.
There's a company in New Zealand, an insurance company, if I remember correctly, that did a pilot. I can't remember whether. No, I know for a fact that they didn't do it with all the employees.
Okay.
But with some of the employees, they ran. I think it could have been as long as 6 months, maybe a little bit shorter, and they at the point now where they're going to suggest that to their board.
Okay.
So they found. And there's a study out there. Anyone can Google it. So some interesting observations there that they felt that people had a stronger sense of work-life balance, which we all know is bullshit.
You have very strong opinions
I have
about
very
that.
strong opinions and I'm not the only one.
Yeah.
What I find interesting about that is that there are some other examples of companies that implemented. So this is quite a big company, in excess of 250 employees.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about the facts. Maybe that was the number of employees that they ran the pilot with. So much larger number of employees. In the past, 5 years, people have been trying this.
Yeah.
With mixed success.
Yeah. I think some of the Scandinavian countries have adopted it.
Well, but that was for completely different reasons. So when you talk about a country adopting a specific, so they talk about a 32-hour or 35-hour work week. If I remember correctly, one of the reasons why France introduced that a number of years ago was to combat unemployment.
Okay. So companies would have to hire more people.
Correct.
To pick up the slack kind of thing. Okay.
So in this case, one of the other cases that was in the news recently was a marketing agency in the States that did that. They went to a 4-day work week, and they've reversed that decision now.
After how long?
Not 100% sure about how long, but it was also 6 months plus.
Yeah.
And they had specific reasons why, it didn't work for them.
Yeah. I've also heard, in doing a little bit of research about this, that some companies, in wanting to try and see if it would help, would offer an opt-in where staff would get a percentage cut on their salary during the period.
Yeah.
Which I suppose might be a good enough option for some people in terms of fuel saving, traveling to and from work on that day of the week and things like that. Maybe it's not a bad idea to offer that kind of option.
But it's not always possible to do that. We have very specific cases where that would not even be an option.
Yeah.
Based on agreements with customers, etc. But I often wonder when people ask the question about what is it that people expect to get out of a 4-day work week.
No, I can only talk from my own experience, and maybe there's a few things that I want to try doing and I feel like I don't have the time for, or maybe it's not necessarily always time, it's energy to do in the few hours that you have available. And so another thing that I was thinking about recently is I've been wanting to have a braai because I recently moved house, and I haven't gotten around to making my house presentable for guests. And when I get home from work, it's the last thing I feel like doing is tidying and cleaning things up. And on the weekends, there's other commitments that you've got. I'm running and seeing friends and things like that. I just feel like one extra day in the week, maybe if we had an 8-day week, it would make all the difference.
I mean, the things that you mentioned now, I don't see how a 4-day work week would solve those things.
Do you have other solutions for me?
Yeah, with a little bit more context, I may be able to come up with other solutions. So, I'm not sure that when people talk about a 4-day work week, that's really what they're after. Are they not maybe after a bit more flexibility?
Maybe.
And I think that's very much on an individual basis that one must look at that. Where I get really suspicious of these things, I mean, this company that I mentioned in the beginning, the New Zealand company, and there are some other examples of that as well, where people all of a sudden claim that staff managed to do in 4 days what took them 5 days to do.
So what is the suspicion there?
Well, the suspicion is what have people been doing? And should the employer then take the knock for giving people an additional incentive to do what they signed up to do in the first place?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me. And I'm also not convinced that is going to last.
Yeah. So I suppose, I mean, you would have to run some kind of test to know for sure if it was going to work or not. But what a lot of those articles say is that the productivity increases because people feel more excited about going to work because they've got more time with their family, things like that. So I don't know that it really is nonsense. The motivation might be higher if they know that the company cares about them enough to allow them to spend more time with their family or doing things that are important to them.
But I'm not disagreeing with that, and you know that we care about all of those things, and believe them to be extremely important, which is again why I'm saying that work-life balance is bullshit.
Maybe that's a podcast for another day.
Yeah, because I think some of the things that you mentioned really speaks to that, to my viewpoint about that work-life balance is bullshit. So if one parent works a 4-day work week, the other parent doesn't. Kids are at school, how does that improve time with family? You see, I'm not convinced that is the solution. If you don't work on Wednesdays or on Fridays, so you have a long weekend every week, how long is that going to last? How long will that additional motivation be before that becomes the default? And I don't think that there are enough studies out there to really speak to this. About the sustained benefit, that those who claim that they get the benefit. I think that the issue is more around that flexibility. So, I'm a huge Ricardo Semler fan, and that is something that he's been advocating since the mid-80s. Is, if there's something compelling for you to do on a Wednesday, then we should have the flexibility for you to go and do that on a Wednesday. But then people should also, I mean, the flip side of the coin is also, well, you know what, if you then have a volume of work that must be done, you must be willing to slot that in at another time.
Yeah.
So a lot of time, it's not so much about the hours. We're not working in a factory where you have to man a station, and we produce widgets, and if you're not there, it has a huge impact. But we do work as teams.
Yeah.
And if one member is not here, it definitely has an impact. We see that often. So building that flexibility to allow people to do certain things, I think that's pretty easy to do. But you need the commitment from both parties.
Yeah. I was going to say that if we were to trial something like that, we would need to have at least certain days of the week when meetings can't be scheduled or things like that.
I don't think so. I think it's a lot easier to schedule around those things.
But so the way that you're saying it is that it might be something that you can't plan in advance. So if suddenly you need to do something on a Wednesday,
well, what's your definition of not planning it in advance? I mean, Wednesday morning, there's something urgent to do this afternoon. Well, if it's urgent enough, we currently deal with it.
Yeah.
So I don't see that as a problem.
Okay.
I really don't see it as a problem.
Yeah.
What I would like to encourage people to come and chat to me individually, because the collective, well, you know what, we think it would be a great idea to have a 4-day work week. I mean, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
But I would love to chat to individuals, kind of hear their thoughts.
Yeah.
And try and understand what that would mean to them individually. And maybe through that, there is something that can work for the collective.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it comes back to what we ask people in so many podcasts and just in our daily work life, is to come and chat and come up with solutions and talk about things that they think we could be doing better as a company or as teams. And sometimes it feels like we have to pull those ideas out of people. So it'd be so nice if people could come forward and say what they think.
Yes, because I'm really interested to hear what people's thoughts are and what challenges they currently have that something like that would solve for them.
Yeah.
Because I'm really keen if somebody is... So let me take an example. My dentist will not see me on a weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when I have to go to the dentist, and I expect that, or kind of assume that is the case for everybody.
Yeah.
So I schedule my appointment, I go, but I still do what I have to do.
Yeah.
And I don't see why that should be different for anyone else. So a dentist appointment is something that maybe, I don't care whether it's getting your nails done and you can only get an appointment at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. I don't see that should be a problem. You were going to do that at some other time during the week. Well, why can't you swap it around? For the employees with children, I fully understand how important it is for parents to go and attend sports events and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So by all means, go and do that. Schedule it. You know when these things are going to happen. Don't miss out on all those events.
Yeah.
But I truly believe that these things can be accommodated without having to make some major change, like a 4-day work week. So if we say, for example, well, you know what, if it was possible, hypothetical, we know it's not possible. We said we only work Mondays to Thursdays.
Yeah.
Well, how quickly will it then become a problem to say, well, you know what, I actually need Tuesday afternoon because that's when my kids have a sports event.
Yeah.
And how often, and that is unfortunately what happened to a lot of these places, where you find that some employees, those who all of a sudden magically happen to do in 5 hours what used to take them 8 hours,
Yeah.
they will then stick to the, well, you know what, Monday to Thursday. But you get other employees who realize that things are falling behind and there's more to do and so on. They actually start working on the other days as well.
Yeah.
And hours increase, and effort increase. So I really like to understand from an individual's point is what problem it is that they really want to resolve or overcome, what challenge they want to overcome, which we think collectively, well, maybe a 4-day work week will be the solution.
Yeah. So we were running out of time, so maybe we won't talk about this now, but I was just curious about who decided that work is Monday to Friday, 8 to 5. I mean,
true.
We're like, why is that the norm, and why is that what companies all around the world and every single company does? Where does that come from?
Yeah, because it wasn't too long ago when it was a 6-day work week.
Yeah, Saturdays
was really common.
Yeah.
You know, so I think the answer is pretty simple. There's definitely some stuff to read up about, but it kind of comes from the industrial age and factories. But yeah, it is something that we inherited. It is not necessarily it doesn't necessarily fit the modern world that we live in.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people work Saturdays and Sundays now anyway, just because we're always on.
Correct.
Got your cell phone with you all the time and can do everything you need to do from this little device.
Yeah, retail and entertainment, that sort of, it's very common for people to work Saturdays and Sundays. I'm not saying that they work 7 days a week.
Yeah.
But that it's not strictly a Monday to Friday thing. So that's maybe another topic that we can discuss.
Yeah.
But what is expected of you?
Yeah.
So in some instances, what we do is time bound. In other words, we have to log the hours and we have to account for that. But for a lot of it, it's not. It's outcome based.
Yeah.
And if you can deliver what you're doing then you have to go back to the employment contract, because unfortunately those things are linked into, well, you get paid X. And the simplest way is these are the working hours.
Yeah.
So it would have to mean that we have to review those things as well.
Yeah.
And quantify. And these are all things that I'm really happy to discuss with people about. If people want to say, well, I want to change my working arrangement. I will deliver X, Y, and Z, and we can agree what it is that you'll be paid for that. The same way that you walk into a store and you buy a pair of shoes, for example. You're happy to exchange an amount of money for something that you get and that you can inspect and you can quantify.
Yeah.
Bottom line is people must come and talk to us.
Yeah.
Really want to understand. I think that we allow a lot more flexibility than even our own people realize.
Yeah. In terms of working hours.
In terms of working hours, I mean, we're pretty flexible with that. I know for a fact that not once has an employee come to either myself or any of the leadership and said, I have a sick relative, or I have something that I have to go and take care of now, where that was refused and a person was told to go back to their desk and sit down and do their job. So I'd really like to understand and have that conversation with people.
Cool. So chat to us, comment, email, whatever.
Well, just walk in here and chat, please.
Cool. Thank you.